Hello, it's the 20th of July. This is Renew Every Morning. I'm Paul Anderson-Walsh, and as ever, I'm so indebted to you for being with me. So thank you for stopping by. And today I think you're going to be happy you did, because today we're going to be looking at a postcard of grace about a woman called Lydia, the first European convert. Just take a minute to think about that. The first person that was ever converted to the gospel in Europe. Isn't that something? Now, Lydia it has that particular claim to fame, because what happened was she was the product, and just think about this for a moment. Paul has a plan. He is set with his missionary team to go to Asia. And one of the things I want you to notice about this is that when you're working with the Lord, it's very important to learn to be wind blown. You know what? We make plans, right? But let's not forget who the plan maker really is. And actually, don't be too fixed in the things you want to do. Paul was very fixed in his mind what he was going to do. And one night, as he was on his way to Asia, he had a vision. And he had a vision of the man of Macedonia. And the man of Macedonia said this to him in the vision. He said, "Come over here and help us." And I love the fact that Paul doesn't query that. He wakes up in the morning and he says to his team, Asia's off, we're going to Europe. And that's it. It's done. We're going somewhere else. We're going to Philippi. So they set sail immediately through Samarantsu to Neapolis, and they arrive in Philippi, which is a major city in the colony of Macedonia. And Lydia then, she finds herself in this sequence because once they arrive, they get to Philippi on the Sabbath. So Paul goes outside the city gate, interesting, where he expected to find a place of prayer. That's what we read in Acts chapter 13. And there he meets Lydia and with a group of women, and Lydia is amongst that group. And Acts 16 gives us his lovely little insight into her. Listen to this. The Lord opened her heart to respond to Paul's message. Isn't that glorious? So there she is at prayer. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know who she's praying to. I don't know what her understanding is at this stage. But all I can say to you is she's obviously a devout woman and she's open. But then Paul comes and speaks the word to her. And you notice this. It says the Lord opened her heart to respond. And I think that's something that sometimes we forget. Sometimes when we are sharing the gospel with people and we get frustrated because they don't accept it, it's worth just taking a step back. I always say this to people. If people don't receive the message of grace, there is one compelling reason for that, and it's this. The law hasn't finished its perfect work in them yet. So let the law do its work. Don't worry about that. You just be the faithful sower that sows the seed, and wherever it falls, it falls. It'll fall in thorny ground, good ground, rocky ground, all the rest of it. But when the time is right, the Lord will open somebody's heart to respond to Paul's message. And I think that's wonderful. She gets baptized along with her whole household, and immediately she offers hospitality to Paul and his team. So that's just a good process for you, by the way. She's all in and all open for everything. She was the first, yes, absolutely. The first person in Scripture named in the gospel on European soil. The first known convert in Paul's missionary time. It's really lovely, really, really lovely. And I think it's important to recognize that, and this is worth just saying to you, that he gets just think about this for a minute. Paul responds to a call from a Macedonian man who appears to him in a victory. And through the vision, which featured a man, God's providence leads him to a praying woman. Now, that's interesting because this woman holds the key to unlocking an awful lot of Europe for Paul, none of which Paul would have known. Paul's called by the image imagine that. Paul's called and beckoned by the image of a Macedonian man, but he's welcomed by a woman. The first to say yes wasn't the one in the vision, but somebody already prepared by God, and that is worth bearing in mind. So she's the first heart that's opened in Europe. She wasn't in a synagogue, she wasn't in a palace, she was by a river with other praying women. Hebrews tells us, doesn't it, that he has a place outside the city gates. And Paul is smart enough to know to go outside of the city gate. And I love that. And she's with these other women praying. And that's where Paul found her, a woman called Lydia. Now, she's described as a worshipper of God. That's an important, again, 16 verse 14. And scriptures say, as we said, the Lord opens her heart to hear the message. But before Paul preached in any of the great arenas of Europe, and of course so much of Paul's writing is about the great European mission, he meets a woman with an open heart. The gospel doesn't enter Europe through the power or through politics, but through prayer and simple hospitality. A businesswoman, mark you, and a businesswoman with influence. And again, I think this is important. If I can think of, my goodness, some of the significant women that I can think of in my walk that have been the door openers, that have opened up places to me and have been the ones that the Lord has opened up their heart to listen to what I have to say. She was a seller of purple. And I kind of like this idea because I'm thinking to myself, I've just got echoes of the woman of noble character. And of course, I know that's not who's been referred to here, but you remember her children boast of her. She makes these wonderful fabrics for them. She's a seller of purple. Now, purple, of course, is the color of royalty. It's the color of dignity. It's the color of wealth. It's a very profound color. She and her household, remember, she traded luxury goods. I love this. She didn't sell the cheap stuff. This woman sold luxury goods. So I kind of like this idea. This is a kind of Rodeo Drive kind of person. It's right up there, a Bond Street lady, or if you like. And she was known for these extraordinary fabrics and silks and colors that she did. And what's lovely is she wasn't ashamed of the gospel, and she certainly wasn't ashamed of its messengers. And its messengers didn't turn up in haute couture. They didn't turn up in Dolce & Gabbana and Ralph Lauren. That's not how they turned up. They weren't wearing Christian Dior or Giorgio Armani tailored suits. No, not at all. That's not how they turned up. But what she does instead is she turned her resources into a refuge for the church. I love that. Her home became the first house church in Philippi. Think of that. The very first house church that was established in Europe was established by a businesswoman who opened up her home. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that just lovely? We had a girlfriend in Brazil who used to take us here and there, and she was amazing. A businesswoman, a successful businesswoman, and she used to carry us here and there to all sorts of different places, opening up all sorts of incredible opportunities for us. Just the most wonderful woman. Lydia shows us that faith and enterprise are not at odds. This is something I've had to learn very well. Business and the business of God are not at odds. She made God her business, and her business was God's. That's the thing. And she reminds us that success doesn't cancel out surrender. It can become a platform for it. She tells us something about baptism and belonging. I think that's quite interesting. She doesn't just hear the message, she receives it, she responds to it, she's baptized. Now, of course, baptized is not a condition of salvation. Of course, you know that very well. It's an outward sign of an inward reality. It's the eternity ring of faith, as I always describe it. It doesn't make you any more married, but it's just another way of saying, look, this is who I identify with. And it was not just her, it was her and her whole household. And household salvation is something I think we need to think a little bit more about. We'll see that, of course, with the Philippian jailer as well, won't we? And then she did something else. She said, look, if you consider me to be a believer in the Lord, yes, says Paul. Now, you might think she's going to ask for something. You might say, well, maybe you could do this. Maybe you could introduce me to so-and-so and get me networked over here. No. She says, if you consider to me be a believer in the Lord, come stay at my house. That's wonderful. If you think if I'm one of you, come and stay with me. I want you to have our hospitality. Lydia's faith wasn't passive. She's not a passive woman. She opens her mind, she opens her heart, she opens her home, and she opens her purse as well, come to that. She lived out what she believed. She lived with hospitality, she lives with humility, and she lives with this holy, audacious confidence. And we move from this conversion to community. Later we see when Paul and Silas were released from prison, where do they go? Back to Lydia's house. She's the one who's the church plant, the Christ plant in the community, because it's become more than a home. It's a gathering space. It's a sanctuary. And I love that. My very best friends in the world have opened their home up, as they call it, the space, and they just have hospitality for people who want to come and just be found and be free and be whole. Lydia reminds us sometimes the church isn't built by those who preach, but by those who prepare the place. She was a mother of the Macedonian mission. She was a quiet founder of a bold new way. So, renewing thought for today. Oh my gosh, I've got so many wonderful women in my mind who've just been such wonderful hosts, whether it's Carrie, whether it's Linda, whether it's Dee Dee, whether it's, I could just roll names off my mind because there are so many of them. But Lydia was devout in her worship. She was diligent in her business. She is fervent in her spirit. And Moffat described her in this way. She kept what Moffat called a spiritual glow. Now, I want you to hear that, a spiritual glow. She was unashamed of the Lord's people. She welcomed the presence of Christ with absolute joy. A woman of posture, of open mind, of open heart, wide open to God and to others. Too often the world kind of robs us of our glow, doesn't it? But Lydia shows us it's possible to be in business and still in the business of God. She shows us it's possible to be in the affairs of trade without losing our glow, the glow of love. To serve the Lord while running a household, to lead with grace and host with generosity, and glow in the Spirit. That is a woman that learnt to love literally on the job. And that's what it means to be renewed. Well, may you be encouraged today. Always lovely to be with you. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. All right. Glow in grace. Bye-bye.